So here's another starter pack for you. This time we're looking at modern progressive rock artists. Now this one differs from the one that I had just released, which you can find right out there, being the contemporary progressive rockers. I wanted to do these guys very close together because I feel like there's a lot of similarities between these two. Within modern progressive rock, these are the guys that are out nowadays that still kind of plant their flag a little bit in terms of the modern current climate, and I think this is the main differentiation between the two. Modern progressive rock are ones that are current and in today's music, whereas the contemporary ones are those that look forward. And these guys are also heavily on more of like the rocker type of music, and these guys kind of came from like the zeitgeist from like say the late 90s early 2000s of the alternative. They kind of used that spirit and applied it to progressive rock, so these guys flavor more of like a jazz movements as well, incorporating that style into the music, and it's become more of like a melting pot of all these modern techniques. And that's kind of how they stew up their music, as opposed to the contemporary ones that don't even use any of those techniques and try to create their own. So with that, I have selected 5 artists and bands that I'm going to be saying are recommended listening, and from each there's going to be at least 1, sometimes 2 albums from those that I would say you definitely need to listen to, and then I'm going to have recommended albums as kind of like if you like that album or group, then try another helping from a different one. I'm going to start off right off the get-go. Originally I had them in the contemporary, but after thinking about it, I've decided to put them into the modern, just with the stylings that they have. And this was one of the groups that people have been telling me over and over and over again needed to be in the retro prog, needed to be in the metal prog, needed to be in the contemporary prog, but I decided to put them here. And that is Pain of Salvation. I'm not a really big fan of, like, I enjoy their music, I appreciate what they did for progressive rock in the 90s and the 2000s, but I'm not a big fan. The album that I would recommend is Remedy Lane. This is the one that I enjoy the most, and it really showcases what the band is all about. It shows Daniel Gilden-Lowe's just masterful songwriting-ship, his vocal work, and his guitar playing. All magnificent. From there, The Perfect Element and B, these guys are the ones that like fans just gush over, and I can definitely see why. From here, we're going to switch gears a little bit, but still staying in that heavy aspect, and that is Coheed and Cambria. I love the fact that each of their albums, except for like 1 or 2, follow a narrative style of like this grand opera, the space opera. So from there, I'm going to say that The Required Listening is their most popular, and that is God Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eye of Madness. Whew, that's a long title, but this holds some of their more popular works, and this also holds some of my favorite stuff from them. You can hear the orchestration and the symphonic approach that these guys have to this style of music. It's not quite metal, it's not quite rock, it's very modern in that feel as well, and in that sense this is the one that really kind of catapulted their career. From there, I would say In Keeping Secrets of the Silent Earths is a recommended, as well as The Colors Before the Sun, the only album that doesn't follow that whole big narrative story. These are albums that kind of show you more of what the band is capable of, and Colors Before the Sun, you don't have to worry about that mega Goliath of a overarching space opera holding you back. So from there, we're going to go to the Mars Volta. A lot of people were mentioning this in my metal review, but I feel like these guys really captured that jazzy, that very modern feel. I mean, these guys came out of At the Drive-In, and At the Drive-In really revolutionized the style of music, and then they really planted themselves in that jazzy, very crazy metal type of music, and it's also very, very modern in that sense as well. And the one that I have to say is also the one that I ranked as their #1 album, and that is Francis the Mute. This is the one that I just gush over. I can't help but love. This shows Omar and Cedric's just masterful works of lyrics, of guitarmanship, of singing and singer-songwriter. Just a great duo in that sense, and all the backing musicians on this are just dripping in glory. If you're looking for a jazzy, hard metal, alternative styling of music, definitely check these out, and the longer stretches of music really showcases why these guys are progressive. Now, the recommended one is Delouse as well as Octahedron. And these showcase, again, very different ideas and ideologies of the band. Delouse being that just mind screw of an album, and Octahedron being a little bit more of a structured album in that sense. And from here, we're coming into probably my favorite out of all of these guys, which is the Deer Hunter. I love the Deer Hunter, Casey Crescenzo's kind of side project that grew into his major project. I love, much like Coheed and Cambria's overarching story arc, this one is less like theatrical space opera and more intimate in a storytelling kind of an aspect. And I love just where the story has gone, the musical presentations on here, just fantastic pieces. And the one that I say is a required listen is Hymns with the Devil in Confessional. This is the last piece that we've had so far. We're still waiting for Act 6, which would close everything off. It utilizes all the techniques that have come before it. It really, like, I don't know, I feel like it's probably their most realized out of all of them. But from there, I would also recommend checking out Act 3, Life and Death. This is probably the fan favorite. This is the one that got many people into the band. And I would also recommend checking out the color spectrum. This definitely shows Casey just spreading his wings and just flying in all the different influences that he's had in terms of music, and really trying his legs in all the different styles. Now, the final act of all of these guys that I'll say for the modern progressive rock or modern alternative progressive rock is Thank You Scientists. These guys are much more on the jazzy side. They have a little bit more horn section on them. And the one that I would say is the required one is The Stranger Head Prevails. This is their second album. I think they only have 2 albums, so it's one or the other. And I just love what they were able to capture on this album. I thought that they really moved the music forward, but still grounding themselves in the modern feel of music. And as the recommended is their other album, which is The Maps of the Non-Existent Places. Just a great treat, and one that I would recommend checking out. So from there, I have 5 other artists that I think you should check out. So if all or any of these past required listenings kind of tickle your fancy, these are some of the albums and artists that I would say check out. See if they're up your alley, because chances are if you enjoyed those guys, you're going to enjoy these. First up is Sky Architect. The one that I particularly love is Nomad. These guys are great in incorporating some really fun jazzier movements, incorporating a little bit more of a heavier aspect without being so chaotic that they go completely off the map. I would also recommend the Baroque Project, and the one that I would recommend is Detachments. A great piece. Again, a little bit more accessible, I find, at times. They're not all over the place, but really capturing the modern feel of what progressive rock can be. From there, I would also recommend Closures in Moscow. These guys are relatively new to me, but man, I have been loving these guys. Very similar to, say, like the Mars Volta, without being completely off the map in terms of musicianship. And the one that I would recommend is Pink Lemonade. I've been loving this. Happy Days, I keep listening to on repeat over and over again. I can't help but listen to this. I would also recommend checking out Dream the Electric Sleep. The one that I would recommend is Beneath the Wide Sky. These guys show how dark some of these songs can be. And finally, the one that is a little bit controversial, but I'll stand behind them as being a little bit on the progressive rock side, is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. These guys are just fun. They don't take themselves too seriously, but the amount of music that these guys put out are just fantastic. The starting point for me is the album that, I mean, last year they tried to release, 5 or 7 albums, which was ridiculous. But the one that I would definitely recommend is the Polygon Wonderland, and I think that's how you pronounce it. It starts off with a 10-minute epic and then just flies from there, and it kind of loops right back around at the end. Great piece. I love these guys, and I just love how chaotic and yet how ordered they are as well. So that's my basket of the modern alternative progressive rock. What did you guys think? That kind of does it for me in terms of subgenres of progressive rock. I think the only one that I would want to do after this is maybe like a classic progressive rock, but I feel like at this point I would just be like retreading ground that we all already know. So I might do like an obscure classic progressive rock, or like dive a little bit deeper into some lesser known bands like Vandergraaf Generator or Griffin or something along those lines. So anyway, that's about it. What would you also include in this particular basket as a starter pack? This isn't like a comprehensive be-all end-all. This is just a starting point for some people. Let me know of your own thoughts about this by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.